The air buzzed with excitement, thick with the scent of fresh flowers and polished wood, as guests arrived one by one at the sprawling estate where the wedding was to be held. Rows of chairs lined the immaculate lawn, each adorned with delicate ribbons and small bouquets that mirrored the grand floral arrangements decorating the pavilion. Every table glittered with crystal glassware, soft candlelight reflecting off polished silver, and the gentle hum of classical music floated through the air, blending seamlessly with the chatter of arriving guests. Women stepped out of sleek cars in flowing gowns of every hue, their jewelry sparkling under the soft lights, while men in tailored suits straightened their ties nervously as they exchanged polite greetings. The groom's excitement was palpable. He adjusted his cufflinks repeatedly, a mixture of anticipation and nervous energy flickering across his face. The bride entered in a gown so exquisitely designed that it seemed to glow under the sunlight streaming through the glass ceilings. Her smile was radiant, her posture perfect, and yet there was a subtle sharpness in her gaze whenever it met certain guests. The mother, who had poured countless hours, energy, and money into planning this day, felt a rush of pride at seeing everything come together so beautifully. She had envisioned this moment for years, imagining her son's happiness and the warmth of family celebration. Yet, as she greeted arriving friends and family, she noticed subtle tension, whispers about family dynamics, fleeting frowns, and the bride's slightly dismissive glances. Though outwardly composed, a tiny seed of unease took root. Even in the midst of sparkling decorations and joyous anticipation, she sensed that the perfect picture she had envisioned might not hold, and that beneath the beauty and excitement, trouble could be quietly waiting to surface. Just as the ceremony was about to begin, the bride swept past the mother with a firmness that left no room for objection. "Mom, you should step aside," she said, her tone clipped and imperious, eyes not meeting hers, but scanning the room as if she alone had authority over every detail. "This is our day, and I need to handle things my way." The words struck like a cold wind, and for a moment, the mother froze, shock and embarrassment mingling as a flush crept across her cheeks. Guests nearby exchanged subtle glances, sensing tension, and a few whispered under their breath, unsure how to respond. A storm of emotions welled inside the mother. Hurt and disbelief mingled with the vivid recollection of every late night she had spent coordinating vendors, every call she had made to ensure the catering was perfect, every dollar she had contributed to make this day extraordinary. Each memory amplified the sting of being dismissed so publicly, yet she kept her posture straight, her smile measured, refusing to allow immediate reaction to betray her. She struggled internally, whether to confront the bride in that moment, risking a scene, or to remain calm and think through her next move. The bride's arrogance was undeniable. A dismissive flick of her hand here, a sharp word there, gestures that made it clear she believed her command over the wedding was absolute. She corrected seating arrangements mid-ceremony, spoke over vendors, and even smiled condescendingly when the mother offered suggestions, turning her efforts into trivialities. Every action seemed designed to assert dominance, to humiliate in plain sight, and to rewrite the narrative of who had contributed to the wedding. Even in that heated moment, a spark of strategy ignited in the mother's mind. She realized that responding emotionally would only feed the bride's sense of control. Instead, she would wait, calculate, and ensure that when the time came, her response would be measured, effective, and unforgettable, one that no amount of arrogance could overshadow. Long before the first guests arrived and the music began to play, the mother had invested herself fully into making this day perfect. Every detail bore her careful attention. She had secured the grand venue months in advance, negotiated with vendors to ensure flawless catering, and personally oversaw the floral arrangements so that every petal and ribbon reflected elegance and harmony. The decorations, painstakingly chosen, were meant not only to impress, but to create a memory her son and his bride would cherish for a lifetime. She had spent countless nights on the phone, coordinating schedules, confirming deliveries, and troubleshooting unexpected obstacles, all while balancing the demands of her own life. Her emotional investment was equally significant. She had envisioned this moment for years, dreaming of seeing her son happy and surrounded by loved ones. She had guided him through difficult decisions, offered counsel when doubts crept in, and even mediated minor disagreements between the families. Every step of the wedding preparations had been infused with care, love, and dedication, yet as she witnessed the bride's dismissive gestures and subtle disdain, the sting of betrayal cut deep. Her contributions were being minimized, her presence treated as an inconvenience rather than the foundation upon which the celebration was built. Despite the hurt, she did not allow herself to falter. Composure remained her shield, intelligence her guide. Her mind began to shift from pain to strategy, quietly assessing how she could assert respect without sacrificing dignity. Every insult and slight fueled a careful calculation, hinting at the decisive action she was already beginning to plan, a way to reclaim her authority and make it unmistakably clear that her efforts and her worth could never be ignored. As the ceremony continued around her, the mother's mind worked with the precision of a chess master. She recognized, with stark clarity, the power she held, not as a guest or a passive participant, but as the architect of nearly every element of the wedding. Every floral arrangement, every table setting, every note of music depended on resources she had provided, and every vendor knew her name as the one responsible for payment. It was a responsibility that, in her hands, became potential leverage. She understood that while the bride flaunted authority and dismissed her, she had underestimated the quiet control that the mother wielded behind the scenes. Her thoughts were calm but resolute. This was not about vengeance. It was about respect, about correcting an imbalance that had been thrust upon her. She could feel her pulse steady, her focus sharpening as she mentally mapped out the steps she could take. Every dollar redirected, every vendor subtly reminded of her ultimate authority, could serve as a measured response to the arrogance that had been displayed so openly. The mother began to see a way to assert her position without spectacle, a strategy that would deliver impact while preserving her dignity. She imagined the bride's shock when plans faltered in ways only she could orchestrate. Subtle disruptions, carefully timed, could create confusion that revealed the true power dynamic. Guests remained unaware, thinking of her only as a gracious mother, oblivious to the fact that she was quietly steering the evening's events. For the first time since the day's festivities began, a spark of satisfaction warmed her chest. She was in control, and though her moves would be invisible at first, the consequences would be undeniable. The bride had no idea what was coming, and that ignorance gave her mother the perfect advantage to reclaim respect, and perhaps, to redefine the night entirely. As the reception began, the mother allowed a calm smile to mask the storm quietly unfolding behind the scenes. Vendors who had once awaited her approvals now received final notices that payments had been canceled or redirected, their instructions clear but discreet enough to create confusion without outright chaos. The floral arrangements arrived in partial disarray, some centerpieces missing or delayed, while the catering team, aware of unpaid balances, paused just long enough to throw timing off subtly. Even the musicians faltered mid-piece, exchanging hurried glances, as if something had gone awry. Each disruption was minor on its own, but collectively, it sowed a quiet unease, a ripple that traveled through the room like an electric current. The bride's reaction was instantaneous. First came shock, her carefully constructed composure faltering as she realized that the elements she assumed under her control were unraveling. Disbelief followed quickly, a rising flush of anger coloring her cheeks, and then humiliation, as she grasped that the mother, whom she had openly dismissed, was the true authority behind every detail of the evening. Guests noticed the faltering service and whispered among themselves, confusion spreading like wildfire. The groom, caught between his loyalty to his bride and the dawning realization of his mother's role, shifted uneasily, torn between defending the one he loved and acknowledging the truth. With composure that seemed almost effortless, the mother approached the bride. Her voice was calm but sharp, cutting through the murmurs that filled the room. "You have dismissed me, publicly humiliated me, and ignored every contribution I made to this day. Every vendor, every arrangement, every detail has depended on me, and you assumed control without gratitude or awareness. Your arrogance has led you here. Each word landed with precision, a measured but undeniable assertion of authority. The bride floundered, searching for a retort, but found none sufficient. Vendors exchanged furtive glances, guests leaned in, whispering, captivated by the confrontation, and the groom's expression shifted from confusion to understanding. In that charged moment, the bride realized that the control she had clung to so tightly had crumbled completely. Meanwhile, the mother stood unshakable, her dignity intact, her authority undeniable, a quiet storm that had upended the night and rewritten the balance of power entirely. The effects of the mother's subtle yet deliberate actions rippled outward quickly, transforming the glamorous celebration into a scene of quiet chaos. Guests whispered nervously as delayed hors d'oeuvres arrived, table settings seemed incomplete, and floral arrangements were unevenly placed. The music faltered intermittently, creating awkward pauses that drew attention to the mounting disorder. Conversation stopped mid-sentence as people glanced around, trying to understand what had gone wrong. The atmosphere, once electric with excitement, now carried a tension that no one could ignore. The groom's discomfort was immediate and visible. He moved between the bride and his mother, torn between defending the one he had chosen to marry and confronting the undeniable reality that the woman who had orchestrated the wedding was not only his mother but a figure of authority whose influence and foresight far exceeded his own expectations. Slowly, he began to see the truth. His mother's calm composure, her intelligence, and her decisive actions had prevented a total disaster, even as the bride's arrogance had created it. The bride, meanwhile, faced the stark consequences of her entitlement. The shock of losing control in front of family and friends left her flustered, her carefully crafted poise shattered. She realized that her public demeanor, so full of confidence and superiority, had only exposed her ignorance and arrogance. Whispers circulated about her behavior, hinting at reputational damage that would linger well beyond the night, both among family members and within the broader social circle. The mother, however, remained composed and unshaken. Her dignity never faltered as she quietly enforced the consequences of the bride's disrespect. Guests who had initially viewed her with polite distance now regarded her with admiration, appreciating the strategic precision with which she had asserted control. The power dynamic had shifted entirely. What had begun as an attempt to honor her son's wedding had evolved into a demonstration of calm authority and respect earned, not demanded. As the evening wound down and the guests gradually dispersed, the mother took a quiet moment to reflect on the whirlwind of events. A sense of satisfaction settled over her, not from humiliation inflicted or chaos caused, but from the calm strength and composure she had maintained throughout. She recognized that respect is never simply demanded. It is observed, earned, and upheld through quiet authority and deliberate action. The evening had taught lessons about family dynamics, boundaries, and the consequences of entitlement, lessons that extended far beyond the immediate disruptions of the wedding. She understood that her response had been guided not by anger, but by principle. Every decision, every carefully measured action had been about asserting fairness and ensuring that her contributions and dignity were acknowledged. In reclaiming her authority, she had not only restored balance to the evening but also subtly reshaped the expectations within the family. Relationships would adjust, some humbled by arrogance, others learning the quiet power of strategic composure. In that reflective stillness, she realized the truth that had guided her every move. Power and respect are inseparable. Those who wield them with patience and intelligence triumph, while those who rely on ego and dominance falter. Calm strategy, she thought, always outlasts arrogance. And in that understanding, she found her own quiet victory, one that no one could take away. Months later, the echoes of that unforgettable wedding still lingered in family conversations and social circles. The bride, once brimming with confidence and entitlement, found herself navigating a new reality. Subtle but persistent whispers reminded her of the evening when her arrogance had been exposed, and she began to adjust her attitude, learning to temper control with humility. The once unshakable air of superiority softened slightly as she faced the long-term social consequences of her behavior, realizing that respect could not be commanded, only earned. The groom, too, carried the lessons forward. He reflected on his own assumptions and oversights, recognizing how easily he had been swayed by appearances and charm. Gratitude toward his mother, respect for her wisdom, and an understanding of the importance of family boundaries became guiding principles in his marriage and beyond. He learned that true strength lies not only in personal desire, but in honoring those who support and guide you. The mother, however, remained a pillar of poise and admiration. Friends and family alike spoke in quiet awe of her intelligence and strategic foresight, praising the way she had maintained dignity while asserting authority. Vendors and guests remembered the calm, yet decisive presence that had quietly directed the entire evening, ensuring both order and accountability. In the end, justice and fairness prevailed, not through loud confrontation or vindictive acts, but through careful planning and controlled action. The mother's composure had transformed humiliation into empowerment, reshaping the night and its consequences. She hadn't merely reacted. She had rewritten the story, ensuring that respect, accountability, and family integrity were secured. Through patience, intelligence, and quiet authority, she demonstrated that true power lies in strategy and dignity, leaving an indelible mark on everyone involved.